Well, I'm actually quite surprised that I'm making a video. This is usually not the time that it's done. I am most definitely still on a high, but I'm very much at the tipping point of falling down. And when you're high, you're in the mania, you've got things to do. And one of the things uh, I sorry, I got distracted. I'm a million different directions, and really don't have time for any of them, and just really trying to enjoy the up as long as I can, because the down will come, and I have no idea how long it'll be. But I can't. I don't even know how I'd go through another 2.5 years down again. I don't know if I could do it. But I am making this video to help clarify some information for the time period in my life. This is under the He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not um, series, and it's really just an addition on to part two. Um, most of the rest of the parts were one part to a home, but in part two, I actually had two homes in the one video. So I had the trailer park, and then we had I guess our little square house, um, right by the high school. And yeah, so one of the questions was, what was the relationship with my father? And I don't really know how to answer that. I'm just going to give different pieces of information, and then maybe one can derive what that means. So, by and large, he was mostly non-existent. He was there, or when he was there, he wasn't there. He was in his room, basically chain smoking, and solving all these problems for college. Just working out all these equations and different things he had to do. And quite honestly, our existence, our life you know, was contrary to that. It was the opposite of what he was trying to do. Peace and quiet and concentration. And we're younger kids. We're a family, and it's a little crappy house. So it's not like you can go off to a corner or anything. I mean, so yeah, it was a hard place to live. Um, and that was when he was home, and that was also when he was sleeping. See, that would be that mode. And then, the other time period was when he was gone. I don't recall him working, so I don't know if he was working. My stepmother was working at the time, but I would assume my father worked, but I have zero memory of it, just college. So about the only time that there was any relief, or not being on guard, or slipping up by making too much noise, or whatever it would be, um, that only occurred when he was gone, because all other times it it was just well, you just really never knew what you were going to do that would set him off. Like, was a noise, or you didn't put something in the right place, or whatever the hell it would be. I really can't pin it down to one thing, because it just varied. Um, it was really really hard to know what was expected, other than just shut up and don't exist. But it was really hard to know what was really wanted. What we were supposed to do as kids, like, other than be in the home and be quiet and not exist. Um, but the relationship. So that. I guess that's one point. I mean, I didn't answer, but I mean, what is that for a relationship? I don't know. What do you call that? I do have memories of my father taking me to college with him, And I shared one of them in the other video where he had bought the Hewitt Packer, or I think that's how you say it, calculator back then, which was it was a gem. It would be like a very, very, very fancy laptop of today back then. And I remember I must have gone more than once because I remember more than one instructor would relate to me in the classroom, and I remember being told, just how good I sat there, and I remember the creaks and the groans of the steam heat radiators because I usually sat kind of by a window. And I would just sit there and go to the classes. I don't know if that's because he couldn't get a babysitter. I would assume. I don't know. I'd be guessing to try to know. I just remember the really long stairs that we had to go up to get into the whatever building it was that we would go to. I mean, it would be like if you entered a courthouse or a Capitol building or something. It was just a tremendous amount of stairs going up into it. So more on the relationship with Dad. So there I have something there. I would say that was one of the better times with Dad. Um, they weren't necessarily bad, but you were absolutely expected to be. I mean, I wasn't quiet and good because I was a young kid and wanted to be quiet and good. It was like that was absolutely what was demanded, or you would face the wrath at home. Um, most most of the other experiences that I have with my father would probably be on the disciplinary side. That the encounters, I guess, would be on the disciplinary side. Um, and it's really hard for me to try to convey or what that would mean as like what is that for a relationship? Like what would you say about a relationship if he's the enforcer and you've done something wrong and you fear him and then you get your lashings, you get belittled, you get made smaller, you get uh, you just broke down to nothing, and there was never anyone involved for me to lift me up. The other kids, when they did get in trouble, their mom, Jeannie, would embrace them and lift them up and wipe away their tears and hug them and say she loved them. And I didn't receive that, and I was kind of on my own to figure out what that next step looked like after you're beat down and mocked and whatever, and you have no friends. I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't like make up imaginary friends or something. Really, I mean, seriously. Um, there was times that we'd be down the street at my stepmother's. I guess you'd say dad, but he's not really a dad at all. He was one of her mom's ex-husbands. Anyway, we'd go down there, and I believe they would play cards. So my dad, my stepmom, or whatever, and them, they'd all play cards, and uh, I guess it would be my stepmother's sister's kids. I get really confused with that, but whatever they are, we'd play. But once again, we were not to be a distraction from the adults while we were there. I remember Jeannie. She got really into buying these little ceramic. I guess they'd be ceramic pottery and figurines and stuff, and she would paint them, and then you could take them back to that same store, and they would fire them. They glaze them or whatever you call it, and they'd come back and be really shiny and glass-like. And I remember that from that time period. Um, but I mean, quite honestly, I probably had more experience and more of a relationship with my stepmother, even though I would say that was extremely limited during this time period. The this was a very transitional period in my life for sure, because before it was me and dad, and me and dad were on a team, and I was his buddy, and I guess he was my buddy. We were like, I don't know, I was his thing and he was my thing. We were just the two of us going through life together. And that really kind of faded, going into Missouri. But definitely, after we left the trailer home, it definitely faded away, and it left me in a very interesting spot, I guess, as a child of that age, to know things like love, purpose, to be wanted in somebody's presence, wanted you to be around. I felt very much like we were, like, I keep saying like, but it was more like we were just like a puppet or something. We weren't human, we were just objects, objects that did stuff. I mean, that's definitely how I felt. There was no purpose. There was no love. There was no, reason to greet the day. It was just very. I mean, if I look at it now, it was just a very sad. Okay. I didn't even know I was going to cry. I couldn't imagine doing that to my children. I couldn't imagine knowing that somebody was doing that to their child. It would have been nice to be loved. It would have been nice to be hugged. It would have been nice to be, hey, join me. I want you in my presence. Hey, you're important to me. Hey, I was thinking about you. It wasn't that. And quite honestly, even with thousands upon thousands of hours of counseling, the damage that was done from that will never be fixed. There are times in your life where you're being molded and you're being painted just like those little ceramic things that Jeannie would paint, and you're fired, and you're shiny, and your colors come out. And that's who you are. You can't paint it again and fire it again. You're stuck. I spent a lot of time longing for something that wasn't there. and trying to process through that in a time period when there was nothing in place. You're just all alone. Apparently, we're just going to keep the Debbie Downer theme to answer the other questions. So, school, wanting to know more about school. I have a very, very small amount of information about school. At that time, the grade school. It was a Catholic school. It was absolutely rigid. Like, you could get spanked at school, and I did, with the paddle, more than once. More than once. And wow, it was structured. But I actually liked it because unlike at home, like something equaled something. If you did this, this is what you got. You did this, this is what you got. You clearly knew what was expected of you and what the consequences were. The whole cause and effect made sense. So I remember one time we did balloons, and they obviously had helium in them, and we tied messages onto them or stuck them inside the balloon and then inflated them. And this was for a pen pal. Wherever they would land it, it'd be like, "Hey, I'm Jason, and I'm from St. Mary's Catholic School in Rolla, Missouri. Um, I'm this years old. I have a bike." I don't know. It was something real short, and then it would be like, "Would you write back to me?" And then we all launched them, which was really cool. That's probably why I remember it so much. Gosh, I don't know if it was just one grade or if they let the whole school participate or what. But anyway, it was a tremendous amount of balloons, or at least it was at that age. And watching them rise up, and some got so far up and hit something and popped. Some got stuck in a tree. Some totally outran all the others. They're all going up at a certain speed, but nope, not that one. That one's just in a hurry, and then some are just dilly dally, and they go the other way. And you're like, I don't know. It was just fun to watch. Um, I remember in the art room we had those. I don't know if they were permanent, but those markers that you could smell. They had the smells to them. And we had the big mega pack with like all of them. And I just remember smelling them all and doing art. I remember being in the gymnasium a couple times. I don't really remember it, and I don't remember the cafeteria. I do remember uh, practicing cursive writing, doing math. Uh, I once again, this is I don't say that it's kind of weird even doing this. I'm not saying this because it's like, oh, feel bad for me or whatever. It's really being honest. Okay, I had no friends, none. So the way that looks like when you're a little kid, if nobody remembers, I was the one that if I walked up to the tetherball where other kids were playing, you would just watch because you would never get inserted into the line to play. They didn't ask you because they didn't want you in there. Or if you're playing Foursquare and you're waiting in line. And that was for sure that school and the next grade school. So I did a lot of just sitting up against the wall and watching, I guess. Watching humans interact. Just learning about people, I think. Every day, 3 times a day. And I mean, it was so bad that the lady, the secretary or whatever she was, either she or my stepmom or my dad, because, they'd been up there so many times to pick me up from school for bad behavior. And somehow they derived a great idea that I was going to get invited to the secretary's kid's birthday party, a sleepover to be exact. And this birthday party, which we went and got a gift for, can't tell you what it was, just like any other kid. And I showed up and it was just like at recess, except less people, but I was still on the outside and I was just watching people because I didn't get, involved. And the secretary kept trying, like, hey, oh, hey, da da da. You see Jason's over here? And like, hi. And they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I just would just end up sitting there or whatever, watching people. The principal gave the spankings with a paddle, and it had these holes drilled in it, this wooden paddle. He was probably a foot long or 16 inches long, maybe 4 inches wide, with these holes drilled in it, and then a handle coming off of that, a wooden handle. It was all one piece. And you got paddled. And I want to say my underwear are up, but at the same time, I don't think they were because it left circles on your rear. It left those marks. I can't remember. Um, that one hurt, but it was kind of like, good try. My dad will show you how it's done. I didn't say that, obviously, but that's what always came next. You would get paddled, parents would get called, you get sent home, and the real beating would take place. And we were in that time period, and both of them smoked. So, all of our car rides from that time period were, unless the temperature and everything was just perfect, the windows were rolled up in the car and they're just absolutely trying to kill you with secondhand smoke. Or you're in this little bitty house that had to be maybe 800 square feet, and both of them are chain smoking. I don't know, like ex-convicts, I don't know. And I shared in the video, but I'll just, lightly touch, but it's definitely in there, is we were poor. We were very poor. I mean, very poor. And we got government food. And you can go back and watch number 2 to learn more about that. But I do remember Jeannie, and she would make, take these pinto beans and she'd cook them up with some salt and pepper. And I think there was bacon in it. And it would take, I think, all day, if not a day and a half, by the time you soaked them, and it was a process. And when we would have them, it would be that, and then she'd always make cornbread, and we would butter it up and put the honey on it, and it was just absolutely amazing. I really don't remember any other food or meal, there, but that I remember. As for the bedroom layout, so there was I got to think about this. One, two, basically well, in the beginning, all of us boys shared a room. Okay. And the way our room was, our door was to the living room. Okay. So the living room, let's just say, was the main room you came into when you entered the house. And then off to the left, there was a door. And if you went in there, that was the boys' room. So that was me in one bed up against one wall, this little, I don't know, little single bed or something. And then on the other side was the exact same size mattress, but Lucas and Josh shared that one. And as we would lay in our bed and look at the wall, our room had two door openings. One door opening was to the living room, and the other door opening was to the bathroom, the only bathroom in the house. And as we stared from our bedroom, one on one side of the room and one on the opposite side of the room, you could see straight ahead into the bathroom if the door was open to the sink. So if somebody was standing there brushing their teeth, da da da, or my mom was, getting all ready, doing the hair of the 80s, all the bangs, all that business, you were there. So if the smoking didn't kill you, the Aquanet hairspray would. And that was it. That was our setup. That was the only bathroom. So even though it was like our space, it wasn't our space because everybody was already always in our space, and you're sharing it with two other people. My parents shared a room, and when my sister was born and really little, she slept in that room. I cannot remember the transitionary, period of like when she got there. We were there for a while. So she grew. And, I believe I shared it in video too, also from about 19 and a half minutes on, somewhere in there. But somewhere in there, I shared the memory of Jeannie and the night that I was awoken, which later was found out of her suicide attempt as she tried to take her life. She was in a drunken state. She was in the bathtub, soaking, and what looked to be like she slit her wrists. And I got to witness that. I couldn't see in the tub. You couldn't see in the tub from my view. And if the door was open, you still couldn't see in it from my brother's bed because the door would be blocking it. But you could most definitely see when she whatever and fell out on the floor in the water. It was like basically if you could fall out of a tub and splash as much water as you could possibly do, that's about what took place. And half of her is out into our room. The other half, her head half, was basically at that the sink, towards there, the cabinet or whatever. And she was completely naked and drunk. So she's acting like drunk people, and she's, I guess, sad because she's also trying to kill herself. And I don't know. I could have gone without all that. I think I could have just skipped that whole deal, but it had an impact. Rode bicycles a lot. It's kind of funny. About 10 years ago, so at age 40ish or something, maybe a little longer than that. So maybe let's say age 35. I actually had a hernia fixed. It was from when we lived in that place. And I was, if you could do something fun, you might as well kick it up a notch and try to make it a little bit more funner. And so we had this little piece of wood. I don't know how big it was. I can't even tell you, but it was a little piece of wood. And we had propped up some of these round boulders. And the wood was just laying on it. And we are just hauling ass and hit that. And we're jumping it with our bikes. And eventually you go faster and faster. And you make the ramp taller and taller, which meant more and more unstable. And you usually remember the things that are traumatic in your life, and so this is one of those events. On this go, I was just pedaling my little heart out. I'm pedaling, and when I hit the board, I didn't go up the board. No. The the rock shifted underneath it. The board, who knows what the board did. My steering wheel, my handlebars, turned completely at a 90-degree angle. Okay. And I went headfirst over it. Well, the handlebar handle away from me dug into the dirt, and the handlebar towards me went around my belly button. Holy shit, that was painful. Absolutely. That was it. And the hands are all scraped up, the face was scraped up. Anyway, I had a lifelong hernia that was caused by that because, the rubber handle grips on your BMX bicycle. If you're a kid at all, man, you rode those things, they weren't rubber at the end anymore. The tubes were sticking out, and they were sticking out sometimes by like an inch or so. Wow, that was just, oh, that hurt. Gosh, that hurt. Oh, I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that were answered. I don't know. I'll look back at my notes, and if I missed any for the He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not, Part 2, subsection A, we'll call it. No, I don't know. The addendum. That's what this is. So I will more than likely be seeing all you guys again in the future when I am not high, because mania people don't have time for this. All right, so I'll catch you later. Bye.